Good morning, everybody. We are live here from the birdhouse, and it is the first day of July. Believe it or not, I can't quite believe it, but we've got a little update for you about some of the different flowers that are starting to bloom and what those might attract. And we'll give you an update about some of the Orioles, hummingbirds, and a couple other things as well. As always, we love to know if you're on. You can say hi in the comments or throw in any questions you might have and absolutely let us know any of your sightings that you've got going on. So in the garden right now, there's lots and lots of activity, lots of insect activity, including things like leafcutter bees. So early in the season, in April, we talk a lot about mason bees that will go in those small little tube type houses that you might have, those wooden houses that have bamboo tubes or they have little cardboard tubes, and the bees will lay their eggs in there. There's another type of bee that might use them later on in the season. Right around now is when the leafcutter bees start to show up and when they start to emerge. And so you know you've got leafcutter bees around if you see something like this in your yard. This is a picture from my yard, and you can see that there's these just kind of like holes that have been cut out from leaves. It almost looks like there's little semicircles cut out from the plants. And these are what are called leafcutter bees, and they are known to cut. You can see this little picture here. They're known to cut little circles, semicircles off of plants, and sometimes they'll put them in those mason bee tubes that you might have in your mason bee houses. So keep an eye out for that because now is the time of the year that you might start to see that. And then I had an interesting sighting in my backyard yesterday, and it was hard to take a picture of, but I do have a video of it. I had this insect here in the bottom right corner. You can kind of see there's something buzzing around there, and its wings were clear, but I'd never seen one in my backyard before. But here's a video of it. It was hanging around some veggie plants that I have. So you can see it's kind of like bright orange. Um, it's hard to tell that it had clear wings until I was snapping a picture of it. It was kind of hard to tell it had clear wings. And then I noticed it was really liking the squash plants. And at one point landed on the soil of one and was kind of doing something with its abdomen, looked like it was laying eggs. Turns out it is what's called a squash vine borer, which I had never seen in my backyard before, but you might have if you are doing any kind of vegetable gardening that has any kind of gourds or squash in the mix. And this is a type of clearwing moth, just like those hummingbird clearwing moths that we'll talk about here and there that mimic the hummingbirds. This is a different type of clearwing moth that is considered an agricultural pest because they do lay their eggs by squash plants. Those eggs will hatch and the larva will be inside the stems of the squash plants. So got to keep an eye on that now in my garden. But I thought it was a really cool sighting, and the insect was just honestly quite gorgeous. They do have these really fuzzy back legs, which were really impressive. And I wasn't sure at first if it was a wasp, was it a fly? And then when I got closer and I could see those clear wings, it was a good sign that I had myself a squash vine borer. Really, I thought was a pretty cool sighting. The squash probably will think otherwise. Some other plants that are starting to bloom, my Turk's cap lily is starting to bud and bloom. So that is one of my favorites. This is a native plant called Turk's cap lily. And then the common milkweed is definitely in bloom right now. And so that is really starting to bloom all over the place. So it's only a matter of time before we start seeing some monarchs. I haven't seen one yet. I've been on the lookout. Haven't seen one yet, but they will be hanging out around the common milkweed. And I've noticed my orange milkweed is starting to bloom as well. So both of these are host plants for the monarch butterflies. They'll lay their eggs on these. Those eggs will hatch into those caterpillars that eat and eat the leaves, and then they'll pupate and do the whole process over again. Also, the bee balm is starting to bloom, also another favorite of hummingbirds and butterflies. So there's quite a few cool plants that are starting to bloom, lots of these nectar producing plants. On Sunday, I led a walk for Victor Hiking Trails, which is a local hiking group. They get together once a month to do hikes. We went to Tinker Nature Park and we saw some pretty cool things. We happened upon some barn swallows that were nesting. And then we also found in that same gazebo, there was a mourning dove. This isn't a picture of the exact one, but there was a mourning dove that had taken over a barn swallow nest as well. It just kind of plopped on there. It looked like maybe it put some sticks inside the barn swallow nest and was just sitting there hanging out with all the other barn swallows. So I thought that was pretty fun. We happened upon that on Sunday. And then some other birds that we saw Sunday on the walk were great crested flycatcher. We saw a couple of them. They are cavity nesters, so they were hanging out around some hollow trees. We were trying to see if we could find which one that they were going into, but no dice. But there were definitely quite a few of those around that we saw and heard both. And a lot of people got to see their first glimpse of eastern bluebird. There were quite a few of them flying around as well. Really, really gorgeous bird. And then yesterday when I was in the garden, I saw a juvenile red-breasted nuthatch. This is usually a bird we talk about more during the winter months. They tend to be more common, and I hardly ever see them in my backyard at all. But yesterday there was a very, very awkward juvenile red-breasted nuthatch flying around. Flying is kind of a kind term for what it was doing, but it was just learning the ropes, you could tell. It was kind of bumbling around the yard, and it was going around so fast I couldn't get a picture of it. But I thought that was pretty cool. So there's definitely juvenile nuthatches out there. And we have the two different species. We've got the red-breasted nuthatch and then the white-breasted nuthatch. And there's also quite a bit of Oriole activity going on in people's backyards. We are getting lots of reports of the parents, if you will, the adult Orioles coming back to bird feeders, both to feed on the jelly and mealworms especially. And we are getting some reports of those adults bringing the juveniles to the feeders as well. So if you are looking to attract more Orioles, or if you had really good luck with them in the early spring and they kind of fizzled out, that's common during their nesting period. And don't be surprised if you put out some more food for them if you start getting them back, both the jelly and mealworms. They'll eat both. And we have the freeze-dried mealworms, we have live mealworms, but that's a good snack for the Orioles, as well as other birds too will eat the mealworms, things like wrens, those nuthatches I was just showing you, chickadees, lots of things will eat the mealworms, including things like gray catbird. We've been getting still lots of reports of gray catbird at backyard feeders, both coming to oranges and the jelly, and then also the mealworms too. So I've got a chatty gray catbird in my backyard that has been hanging out all season long. It's been pretty cool. And as far as hummingbirds go, we've been getting lots of questions about hummingbirds, and people in general haven't been having much success in attracting them, or they're having less than they have had in years before, in years past. So that seems to be the trend this year, is that people aren't having very good luck at attracting them to their backyards and to the feeders. I'm hoping that'll change now that some of these flowers that people have put out for the hummingbirds are getting into bloom. But if you're not seeing a lot of hummingbirds, you're not alone. So now that there are flowers in bloom, if you have that, you might want to take your feeders down if you're not seeing any activity there. But keep in mind that hummingbirds become quite common in backyards when they're getting ready for migration season. So about a month from now or so, you might want to put your feeders back up as they start to refuel and get ready for that migration back down south. So that is our presentation for the day. Thank you everybody for tuning in. It looks like we have a comment here. Darlene says, yummy mealworm jelly. Should I can it? Yes, why not? The birds would absolutely love that. That sounds great. A little mix of jelly and mealworms all together, all in one. Some people do that too. They mix up their freeze-dried mealworms with the jelly to give the birds a little something extra. So yeah, why not? I'm all for that. But that's our presentation for the day. I hope you guys have a great week and a great 4th of July, and we will be back with another live stream very soon. Thank you so much and have a great week. Bye bye.